Hey, welcome back to the channel. It's awesome that you're tuning in. In today's video we're going to be doing chit chat about PXN. Is it still worth it to buy it now? Because there are a lot of different companies out there and PXN have kind of weird when it comes to choices. We have all kinds of different models, like really cheap devices, but also complete ones with shifter, pedals, you name it. But in this video I just wanted to check out the PXN V9 and the V99 to see if these are actually worth it and what are actually the differences between them. There are a lot of different Logitech and other brands out there, so consider subscribing, hit the little bell, because it's going to be a lot of fun. The PXN V9 Gen 2 reminds me of the first generation of Logitech kits, where you're having the pedals but also the shifter. But the difference is that this particular model is compatible with a lot of different devices, like PlayStation, Xbox, but also PC. So this thing is a very interesting one when it comes to compatibility, because most of these racing wheels are for PlayStation, PC or Xbox, or a combination of two. And I think that's kind of cool, and the shifter looks kind of awesome. First thing I noticed is there was no power supply, and that is simply to do because this thing doesn't have force feedback. And that's one of the reasons I have a little bit of a doubt about the overall gaming experience with this. It's not always going to be bad, but it's going to be a little bit more old school. Think about the old school Mad Catz racing wheels. And that is one of the things. Do you really want to have force feedback? No, maybe this can be like the ultimate racing gear solution then. But let's do a quick overview of the racing wheel and what I think of the overall quality. This is not comparable with the Logitech G25 and all the other series. It's a combination of plastic or hard plastic, and on the side of the wheel we're having the rubber grip that feels quite nice. In the middle of the wheel we're getting all of the function buttons, and the function button, for example, having here to share, options, mode, programmable buttons, the D-pad, the ABXY buttons, and all the other function when you're going to be finding on the normal, let's say, controller. At the back we're finding shifters, and I love these things. However, you can see that there's a lot of room before you're getting the click. And they're micro switched, but if you don't like the wiggle room behind it, then there's going to be a little bit of a problem. And this is absolutely different between different racing wheels too. The body itself, it's quite nice of a say on weight and the way of the construction, and it's also very stable, and with the suction knobs this is another way to assemble it. However, the overall design looks quite nice, and the weight of the wheel is also quite heavy. At the bottom part we do have two ways of assemble the racing wheel itself, and the first way is the suction knobs, and this is a very old school but a very reliable way. But we also have these things, and the hooks. They can be assembled on the wheel itself. If you want to do a different configuration, we can just actually slide it in and assemble it to the table like that. So there are two of them, and the overall construction is quite good. I find it interesting to see what kind of overall, let's say, connections we're having, and they are all using is USB-C. That's the first time I've seen that. So extra, shifter, pedals. This is for connection with the PC or console, and over here the input for, it seems to be, a controller. The V9 Gen 2 only uses 5V 80 mA, and as I mentioned before, there is no input for a power supply whatsoever. The pedals, that is also a different situation that we have seen with Logitech. The reason I'm comparing it with Logitech because it's one of the wheels I use very often. So first of all, when you're looking at the design, it's quite nice. Absolutely, the metal is just very cool and gives it a little bit of a more deluxe feeling. However, you have this situation we've seen before with the Hori wheels, that we can just flip this over, open, and we have a full-size pedal. The biggest downside I did notice with the pedals, so it's not a different, let's say, the heights they're using. The position is different. You can see it over here that the acceleration, or the one of the lift over here, is completely different in the height but also the position. But when it comes to the usage of it, it's the same resistance, and that's also a little bit disappointing when it comes to that, where the Logitech wheels do have different springs that we can adjust. Construction wise, it uses, let's say, not like the deluxe situation like Logitech, and I'm keep referring to that. Logitech had this say basic pedal with a lot of cool features, and even have the option for carpet, let's say, resistance with a special part of it. This is not going to be a thing over here. We do have a lot of different, say, rubberized feet over here. So if you're going to be putting this on a surface, think about the desk overall, for just giving you an example. It feels quite sturdy, and moving it, it's not going to be happening anytime soon. The shifter is a very cool addition if you're going to be even caring about it. You cannot use it and just play automatic if you want to, but it comes with a lot of features. So when it comes to the cover over here, this is made out of flexible rubber, and yeah, it feels like not cheap. It gives a little bit of a basic touch to it, where some of the manufacturers even using real fabric. But beside that, the feel is a very short shifting base. So that is absolutely great. Over here having some extra function buttons, and the connection, what I mentioned before, is the USB-C. We can clamp it down to the desk, and that is what we're going to be doing today. And it also comes with some rubber feet to give this thing an extra grip. So it's very cool, a very nice shifter. Maybe not the best one out there, but the complete kit is kind of cool when it comes to this particular model. I decided to assemble the wheel for, let's say, a normal, let's say, clamp way, where I love these suction knobs, not going to be using them. So they're super easy to remove, which you can just actually see over here. So that's why we're going to be doing it. And then we're going to be using the clamp design, I already shown you before. And this is going to be so much more cooler. Okay, so let's see, I'm guessing I need to do something like that. Let's start off with some Gran Turismo. And what is kind of cool, that this thing does have a rumble inside. Where this thing doesn't have any force feedback, the rumble motor is quite aggressive, and it's absolutely a lot of fun. And that makes it a little bit more of a deluxe feel when it comes to the wheel itself. I've been putting it on the 270 degrees, and you can see that it is very accurate, and thanks to the short overall experience and a combination with the spring, playing some Gran Turismo is a lot of fun. So when actually steering in, it's quite aggressive, and you can just feel already shaking. But let's switch out a couple of things. Let's get into the different rotation mode and then just reset everything. So next up, we're going to be looking into the auto mode. Okay, so I know in particular when the 900 degrees. Now we do have like a slightly different experience when it comes to this. It's more realistic, so it's kind of cool that they implemented this on the racing wheel itself. It doesn't change out the rumble function whatsoever. It's still that aggressive like it was before. But steering, I don't notice any dead zone of problems with this. So that's absolutely awesome. So the brakes also work fine. The input, no problem whatsoever. So the next thing I wanted to do is see how the overall, let's say, shifter works and see if this is any fun. How about if you want to play full simulation with 900 degrees and the shifter? So the shifter doesn't do anything if you're not touching the clutch with Gran Turismo. So we're having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if you want to have like in reverse, pushing it down, and then we're having reverse. However, if you're going to be acceleration, it's quite difficult. I noticed like you need to be lifting the clutch very carefully, and you can just see it barely does anything. And I've been struggling to do so. Maybe this is more because I'm just a massive noob in this, but somehow my clutch is not registering anything. So before that I couldn't drive away, but you know, that part I don't really like when it comes to this, let's say, simulation thing going on. So after a couple of times, now it goes, see, that's what I think, like, you need to use the clutch on the right way, and then we're going to be having the option to actually drive. But I've been using this with Logitech, and it works way more, let's say, convenient. Get a little bit more feeling to it. Actually, I'm driving, everything seems to be working just fine. So that's kind of cool. But so far so good. But I think that the biggest problem I'm having is when I'm starting to drive away. Yeah, then I'm going to be having a little bit difficulty. It can be me, but the overall experience, it's okay. The PXN V99. Now we're going to be talking about something serious when it comes to racing solutions. This is just more like the premium feel collection of the PXN. Of course, there are different models out there, but just if you compare this with the V9 and the V99, the V99 also utilize multiple, let's say, platforms. Unfortunately, not PlayStation 5 as making this video, hoping in the future they will fix that. But when it comes to, let's say, the overall build quality, this is just a completely another level. Because this thing does come with some pedals that looks kind of different, but the thing is, it does look so a little bit better when it comes to certain parts. So also the wheel can be disassembled, and that would be a very cool thing for, let's say, different racing wheels and easy plug and play modifications. Having the clamps for people like me who just want to put this on my desk and don't have a driving simulation yet. So in here we're having the shifter. If you're going to be using this, have a very nice one. Let's do a quick overview later on. And then we're having the pedals, all the needed cables. And in here we're having the manual and the 24 volt power supply. I can show you this over here. 24 volts, 2 amps over there. So it's not like a very fancy special one. Over here we're having the wheel itself. I do wonder if you're going to be giving us options for different wheels. And then the base itself with the power cable and the USB plug over there. But let's do a quick overview of each of these products because there are a lot of things you need to know. So let's start off with the pedals. And putting the pedal to the metal is not going to be something we're going to be doing. With a simple reason, they have made the decision to put plastic pedals on there. And there's a little bit of an, let's say, downside where I find like the metal pedals kind of cool and gives like an extra deluxe feeling. However, when you're looking at, let's say, the controls and everything else, I must say that I am very pleased of the acceleration, the clutch and everything else. The resistance is absolutely amazing. However, if you're going to be already seeing it, and yeah, there's a little bit of instability when you're looking at the pedals. You can see that it's quite easy to move around. And in that case, at the front we're finding this very nice grip. And I think it's a very comfortable, let's say, pedal to play with. However, when you're looking at the overall quality, the Logitech ones, the G21s and other ones I've been reusing for many years, I personally prefer those more. Oh yeah, I love the blue color. But okay, here having the racing pedals. So they're using 5 volt, 85 milliamp of course. There's no extra additional, let's say, power needed. But you're just going to be using the connections over here. And that is one of the weirdest things. That we do have a tiny switch over here. We're having an input for an USB-C and the cable for connecting with the racing wheel itself. But we're also having mounting, let's say, holes over here, so we can use this in a racing simulator if I had one. But how about the base itself? You can see the locking mechanism for the wheel itself, and it's something similar to like with Thrustmaster. However, when you're looking at the design, you can basically assemble this fairly easy on, let's say, a desk or let's say, in play seat or whatsoever, thanks to the way how they actually made this piece of metal. So it feels a little bit more professional when it comes to that. Well, we can just use the brackets like I'm going to be doing today and assemble this to my desk. How about the connections? The connections is kind of similar with the cheaper models. So over here we're finding the controller, and this is more like the spoof system they're using. You need to assemble a PlayStation or Xbox controller depending on what kind of system you want to play. Also having a switch over here for 270 and 900 degrees. Having the input for the shifter, the pedals and the input for the power supply. So let's get into some Project Cars, a different game. Okay, so we have been putting the shifter in action. We don't need the clutch, we can just use the shifter, and of course we're having all kinds of shenanigans on screen. Ooh. Okay, so let's move on. So now I can actually enjoy myself, some clutching and racing. Still, I'm not the biggest fan of gearboxes at this point. In my real car, yes, but not with the simulation. So another thing, let's put in the neutral and let's use the shifters. So when it comes to the V99, I must say that I really love the look and I really enjoyed myself. If this is better than Logitech, that is something we should check chat about it in a different video. The hot swappable racing wheel, that is kinda cool, but when you're going to be looking at the shifter and the pedals, they are quite okay when it comes to that. The V9, I must say, is a little bit disappointing. It just gives me that feeling, if you're comparing it with the V99, that it is like a really budget product. And when this thing comes with a quite a hefty price tag, I don't know. To be honest, I cannot really recommend it, particularly when you're going to be looking into the Logitechs or let's say the V99 of PXN itself. There are a lot of solutions out there, but this thing is kind of cool that it is complete. I think for the money you're paying for this, you can maybe get yourself a used Logitech or another brand that has a little bit better premium feeling. Thank you all for watching. I hope you really enjoyed this video and that it helped out. Because in this rabbit hole of all kinds of crazy racing wheels, used and new, there are a lot of developments. Even in the retro space, there were even some cool retro wheels. Subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell, because it would be great if you join the Wicked Racing family.